जय। श्री गोविंद गोपीनाथ मदन मोहन जी की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अशुतर शुत शिशुमार भक्ति वेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज श्री गुरुदेव की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अशुतर शुत शिशुमार भक्ति वेदांत वामन गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अशुतर शुत शिशुमार भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी महाराज श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अशुतर शुत शिशुमार भक्ति प्रज्ञान केशव गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु विष्णुपाद अशुतर शुत शिशुमार भक्तिसिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु महाभगवत श्री गोक्षरस बाबाजी महाराज की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु श्री सच्चिदानंद भक्ति विनोद ठाकुर की जय। नित्यल्लभ विष्णु वैष्णव सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथ दास बाबाजी महाराज की जय। श्री रूपानुगौरिया गुरु वर्ग की जय। श्री रूप सनातन भट्ट रघुनाथ श्री जीव गोपाल भट्टदास रघुनाथ शारद गोसाई प्रभु की जय। श्री स्वरूप दामोदर राय रामानंदारी श्री गौर पार्षद वृंद की जय। नाम जय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद गदाधार शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन की जय। सर्व विश्व भरत गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंद श्री तुलसी महारानी देवी की जय। श्री योगमायेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। श्री मोहिनी एकादशी तिथि की जय। एकादशी तिथि पालन करी भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री उद्धव-गीता की जय। श्रील ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्रील विश्वनाथ चक्रवर्ती ठाकुर Sārārtha-darśinī वृत्ति की जय। श्रील भक्तिसिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपादर गौड़ीय भाष्य की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताई प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। श्री नारायण नामिने भूतले श्रीमते भागवती नामिने सिन्धुभ्य एव पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो महावन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्ने गौरद्विषे नमः। गुरवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकायै तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्ण भक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तमनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस् तं सार्वभूतहृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्णा पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतम्। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। Bhaktya vihina aparadha lakshai Kshitastakama ditaranga madhye Kripa mai tvam sharanam prapanna Vrinde namaste charanarvindam Bhaja Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Madhavi Didi, Kishore Prabhu and Rohit Radha Krishnanji, and also Indira Mataji and Raseshwari Mataji who will be watching later on, and Gargarajji, Dandavat Pranam, Hare Krishna. Okay, so we are continuing with chapter 13, the perfection of spiritual knowledge. Alright, so I'm going to read all the translations now until the verse we're up to, so the first 19 verses. The Supreme Lord said, "One who has cultivated knowledge of the self up to the point of realization of his eternity, and who has given up speculative knowledge, understanding the material universe to be a temporary, illusory manifestation, should no longer endeavor to cultivate knowledge by speculative means. For those who are actually jnanis, I am the worshipable Lord, goal of life, means for attaining the goal of life, the ultimate aim of knowledge, and the ultimate aim of knowledge. I am the only object of their happiness, and I remove their unhappiness. Therefore, no one is more dear to them than me. Persons who have achieved perfection by means of philosophical and realized knowledge know my lotus feet to be the supreme goal of life. Because such learned transcendentalists are always engaged in trying to please me, they are very dear to me. The perfection one achieves by attaining even a small fraction of spiritual understanding cannot be attained by performing austerities, chanting mantras, visiting holy places of pilgrimage, giving charity, or engaging in any other pious activity. Therefore, my dear Uddhav, you should realize the self by the cultivation of transcendental knowledge. Then, with clear realization of spiritual knowledge, you should worship me with your heart saturated with love and devotion. In ancient times, great sages worshipped me through the sacrifice of Vedic knowledge and spiritual enlightenment, knowing me to be the Supreme Lord of all sacrifice and the Supersoul in everyone's heart. As a result, these sages achieved the supreme perfection of attaining my eternal abode. My dear Uddhav, your eternal identity is covered by the material body and mind, which are transformations of the three modes of material nature. Although they appear very real at present, they are illusory because they have no eternal existence. How can the various stages of the body, beginning with birth, have any relationship with your eternal self? The material body is constantly changing, and it will cease to exist, just as it had not existed before. The body must be understood as only a temporary manifestation of the illusory energy of the Lord. Sri Uddhava said, "O Lord of the universe, O form of the universe, please describe the perfect knowledge that results in detachment from all that is material and awards one direct perception of reality. This highly sought-after knowledge describes devotional service unto you. My dear Lord, one who is caught up in the vicious cycle of repeated birth and death and thus suffers the threefold miseries of material existence, for him the only shelter is your lotus feet, which are like an umbrella that showers nectar. My dear Lord, please mercifully deliver this miserable living being who has fallen into the dark well of material existence and has thus been bitten by the snake of time. In spite of a horrible condition of life, the miserable conditioned soul is mad after attaining insignificant sense gratification. Please deliver me by your nectarian instructions, which bring one to the path of liberation. The Supreme Lord said, My dear Uddhav, formerly King Yudhishthira, who considered no one as his enemy, inquired just as you have now from the great authority on religious principles, Bhishma, while we were present. At the end of the battle of Kurukshetra, King Yudhishthira was afflicted with grief because of the death of so many well-wishers and relatives, and thus, after listening to many discussions of religious principles, he finally asked the same question regarding the path of liberation. Now I will describe to you the religious principles governing Vedic knowledge, self-realization, renunciation, faith, and devotional service, which were heard directly from the mouth of Bhishma. I approve of the various philosophical understanding that delineate a combination of 9, 11, 5, or 3 elements in all living entities, and ultimately one supreme element within all 28. When one no longer sees the 28 material elements, but rather sees the Supersoul from whom these elements have emanated, his understanding is called Vijnana, or self-realization. Even materially created form transformations in 3 stages. Every materially created form transforms in 3 stages. Every form transforms into 3 stages: birth, existence, and destruction. Creation, maintenance, and destruction are the stages of material causation. That which consistently accompanies all these material phases from one creation to another and remains alone when all material phases are annihilated is called Sat, or eternal existence. From the 4 types of evidence, that's Vedic oral reception, direct experience, traditional wisdom, and logical induction, so from these 4 types of evidence, one can understand the temporary nature of the material world and thus become detached from the delays of material existence. Should see how material nature is subject to constant transformation. In the highest planet in the material world, the planet of Lord Brahma, there is no secure position. One should understand that within the material world, everything has a beginning and an end, just as his experience has shown him. O sinless Uddhav, because of your love for me, I had previously explained to you the process of devotional service. I will once again impart to you that sublime means for attaining my pure devotional service. Okay, so that's what we read up to yesterday. Let me just check the comments again. Hare Krishna, everybody. Okay. Oh, and Hare Krishna Karkarajji, Dandavat Pranam. I forgot to check. Okay. Radhamrita kathayang me shashvamaranukirtanam Parinishcha cha pujayam stutibhi stavanam mama Adara paricharyayam sarvangar abhivandanam Marbhakta pujabhyadika sarvabhuteshu manmati Mararteshvangachishcha cha vachasa margune ranam Mayarpanam cha manasa sarvakama vivarjanam Marartertha parityago bhogasya cha sukasya cha Ishtam dattam hutam japtam madartam yad vratam tapaha Evam dharmar manushyanam Uddhavatma nivedinam Mai sanjayate bhakti konyorthorsya vashishyate. Firm faith in the nectarian narrations of my pastimes, constant chanting of my transcendental glories, great attachment for my worship in the temple, praising me by offering beautiful prayers, great respect for my devotional service, offering obeisances with the entire body, rendering service to my devotees, seeing me within the hearts of all living entities, offering one's bodily activities in my devotional service, describing my transcendental qualities, offering one's minds to me, renunciation of all material desires, donating one's wealth for my devotional service, giving up material sense gratification and the happiness derived from it, and performing all pious activities such as giving charity, performing sacrifice, chanting mantras, and executing vows and austerities simply with a desire to attain me. These constitute actual religious principles by which devotees who have actually surrendered unto me automatically develop love for me. What other purpose or goal can there be for such a devotee? Sārārtha-darśinī. Sārārtha-darśinī commentary by Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura. Discussions about Krishna are full of nectar. Talks of Krishna's Ras-lila pastimes are the most nectarian and should be heard with utmost faith. The worship of his devotee is more pleasing to Krishna than his own worship. One should perform all his bodily activities, such as bathing and brushing his teeth, in relation to the service of the Lord. One should glorify the qualities and pastimes of the Lord with songs and prayers. One should give his hard-earned money to his spiritual master or the Vaishnavas for arranging festivals of Krishna consciousness. One should renounce whatever wealth creates an obstacle on his path of worshipping the Lord. One should renounce all activities of material sense gratification, of which enjoying sex is the chief. One should also give up all kinds of material happiness, such as that derived from excessive attachment to one's wife and children. One should feed rice cooked with ghee to the Brahman Vaishnavas. One should offer oblations of sesame seeds mixed with ghee into the sacrificial fire while chanting Vishnave Swaha. One should chant the holy names of the Lord without cessation. The austerity to be performed by devotees is to observe fasting on days such as Ekadashi. Hearing discussions of the Lord's nectarian pastimes is the ultimate fruit of all activities for a devotee who is free from all material desires. Unlike jnanis, who give up their sadhan when they attain perfection, devotees never give up the limbs of devotional service, beginning with hearing and chanting, even after attaining perfection. In the perfectional stage of Krishna consciousness, hearing and chanting about the transcendental names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of the Lord are thousands of times more relishable than in the neophyte stage. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda. Faith in the discussion of Hari is the only qualification for chanting the holy name of the Lord. If one is attracted to mundane topics, then one's spirit of material enjoyment will increase. The more one faithfully discussion of Hari, the less his taste for material sense gratification will be manifest. If one gives up hearing and chanting topics that are not related to Krishna, and always engages in glorifying the Lord, he will attain supreme auspiciousness. To hear and chant the glorification of Hari, worship the Lord, submit oneself to the Lord while offering him prayers, offer obeisances to the Lord, worship the Lord's devotee with great care and attention, and consider all living entities to be the servants of the Supreme Lord, are some of the activities by which one can quickly advance on the path of sadhan bhakti. If, while practicing sadhan bhakti, one offers all his worldly and religious activities to the Lord, glorifies the transcendental qualities of Hari, gives up activities that are not pleasing to the Lord, and thus does not run after sense gratification, performs sacrifice, observes vows, undergoes austerities, chants mantras, and gives in charity, then gradually he will develop his dormant propensity for performing unalloyed devotional service. If one's activities are directed towards the service of the Supreme Lord, one gets respite from the false sense of false proprietorship that binds the conditioned soul. Only by complete surrender unto the Supreme Lord can one attain the platform of pure devotional service. Yadat manyarpitam chittam Shantam sattva pabrimhitam Dharmam jnanam cha vairagyam Aishvaryam cha bhipadyate. When one's peaceful mind that is enriched by the mode of goodness is fixed on the Supersoul, one attains religiosity, knowledge, renunciation, and opulence. Sārārtha-darśinī. One might question, what is lacking for one who is a pure devotee of the Lord? Sri Krishna answers this question in this verse. One should not think that unalloyed devotional service is a limb of Gyan. The devotional service that is seen as a limb of Gyan is different from pure devotional service, which is untouched by any contamination of karma and Gyan. One who desires material enjoyment can gradually come to the platform of pure devotional service and at the same time receive the fulfillment of all his desires. If one can fix his mind on the Supersoul, then as a result of his devotion, he can achieve all desirable perfections of life. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. When one faithfully cultivates pure devotional service to the Supreme Lord, symptoms such as knowledge of the Supreme Lord and the individual spirit soul, detachment from all that is not related to Krishna, dependence on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, steadiness of mind, and being firmly situated in the mode of pure goodness are observed in his character. Yadarpitam tadvikalpe indriyai paridhavati Rajasvalang chasannishtam chittang vidhi viparyayam. When consciousness is fixed on the material body, family members, and other objects of sense gratification, one passes his life chasing after material objects with the help of the senses. Being under the control of the motive passion, one becomes dedicated to impermanent things, and in this way, irreligion, ignorance, attachment, and wretchedness predominate. Sārārtha-darśinī. When one's mind contemplates the activities of the material body and household affairs, the mode of passion becomes prominent, so that one becomes mad after sense gratification, even to the extent of performing prohibited activities. The mind of such a person is uncontrolled, thus becoming the cause of irreligiosity, ignorance, material attachment, and tremendous suffering. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. Those who do not avail themselves of the opportunity to serve the Supreme Lord, being overwhelmed by desires to enjoy sense gratification, will become bound by attachment to temporary material objects, thus creating so many disturbances in their life. Let me just check the comments. Hare Krishna, Bhavatarani Mataji, and oh, really? I didn't even realize you were listening to the readings afterwards. Haribol, everybody. And Haribol Prajumna Prabhu and Mantramurti Mataji. Dharma mar bhakti krit proko jnanam chaikatmya darshanam gune svasango vairagyam aishwaryam chanimadhayam. The scriptures declare that real religious principles are those that lead one to devotional service to me. Real knowledge is to see everything in relation to the Supersoul. Real is total disinterest in the objects of material sense gratification. And real opulence is the 8 mystic perfections, which includes Anima Siddhi. Sārārtha-darśinī. Real religion means devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The Supreme Lord is the personification of knowledge. Therefore, one who has been delivered from ignorance naturally engages in the devotional service of the Lord and is considered thoroughly religious. One who is detached from the 3 modes of material nature and the objects of sense gratification from them is considered to be the 8 and opulence. Shri Uddhava Yamavida Prokto Yamovari Karshana Kashama Kodama Krishna Katitiksha Dhriti Prabho. Satyam Rit Kim Dhanam Koyagya Kakshina Shriman Bhagola Bhashake Vidya Hripkari King Dukhami Kapandita Kashan Murkha Katashchak Kasargo Naraka Kasvit Andhur Utakim Griham Ka Ardya Ko Daridrova Ripanaka Ka Ishvara Etan Prashnan Mama Puri Viparitangsh Tatpate. Sri Uddhava said, Dear Lord Krishna, O chastities, please tell me how many disciplinary regulations and prohibitions there are. My Lord, please define mental equilibrium, self-control, and the real meaning of tolerance and steadfastness. What are austerity and heroism, and how can truth and reality be best described? What is renunciation, and what is real wealth? What is desirable? What is religious remuneration? My dear Keshav, O understands the opulence of a particular person. What is the best education? What is actual humility? What is real beauty? What are happiness and unhappiness? Who is learned and who is a fool? What are the true and false paths in life? And what are heaven and hell? Who is indeed a true friend? And what is one's real home? Who is a rich man and who is a poor man? Who is wretched and who is actually fortunate? O Lord of the devotees, kindly explain these to me along with their opposites. It's a lot of questions. Sārārtha-darśinī. After hearing about various kinds of religious principles, Sri Uddhava now asked Krishna to give authoritative definitions of the yamas and niyamas that comprise civilized life throughout the world. The word Ishta means most desirable. The word Shri means opulence. Uddhava also wants to hear from Krishna about that which is the opposite of civilized life. Shri Bhagavan 33 to 35. How many verses are there in this chapter? I'm just looking. Oh, it's been cutting out, huh? I'm sorry about that. It looks like it's better now though, huh? Sorry. Okay, we're reading up to verse 48. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Ahimsa Satyamasteyam Asango Hrir Asanchaya Astikyam Brahmacharyam Cha Monam Stairyam Kshamabhayam Shocham Japastapoha Shradhatityam Mararchanam Tirtatanam Pararthateha Tushtir Acharya Sevanam Ete yama saniyama Ubhayor dvadasha smritaha Pungsam upasitastata Yata kamam duhantihi. The Supreme Lord said, non-violence, truthfulness, not usurping others' property, detachment from worldly association, humility, freedom from possessiveness, faith in the principles of religion, celibacy, silence, steadiness, forgiveness, and fearlessness. These 12 are referred to as yama. External cleanliness, internal cleanliness, chanting the holy names of the Lord, austerity, fire sacrifice, faith, serving guests, worshipping me, visiting holy places, engaging only in activities that are ultimately beneficial, and service to the spiritual master. These 12 are called niyama. My dear Uddhava, these 24 practices bestow all desired benediction upon those who devotedly cultivate them. Sārārtha-darśinī. In these 3 verses, the Supreme Lord defines yama and niyama. There are 2 types of purification, internal and external. By carefully cultivating these 24 yama and niyama, all of one's desires become fulfilled. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The 12 yamas are non-enviousness, remaining fixed in the truth, refraining from stealing another's property, staying aloof from all kinds of bad association, always attempting to do good to others, renunciation of unnecessary sense enjoyment, unflinching faith in the Supreme Lord, celibacy, giving up idle talks, steadiness in one's practices, tolerance of others' offenses, and fear of transgressing the prescribed rules and regulations. The 12, so those are the 12 niyamas. Those are the 12 yamas. Now the 12 niyamas are external cleanliness, such as bathing, internal cleanliness by serving Lord Hari, chanting the holy names of the Lord, observing vows such as Ekadashi, performing sacrifice for the satisfaction of Lord Hari, maintaining faith in the discussions of the glories of Lord Hari, serving the devotees of Lord Hari, worshipping the deity, traveling to holy places of pilgrimage, engaging in activities meant for one's ultimate welfare, remaining fixed in observing the codes of proper conduct, being satisfied in all conditions of life, and serving the spiritual master. Shamaman nishtata buddher tama. Let me see if the connection's still there. Okay. Haribol Sudevi Didi. Shamaman nishtata buddher dama indriya sangyama tatiksha dukkha sammarsho jivo pasta jayodhriti tandanyasa param dhanam kamatyagasthapasmritam sabhava vijaya shauryam satyam cha samadarshanam anyascha sunritavan kavibhi parikirtita karma svasangamas shochang tyaga sannyasa uchyate dharma ishtam dhanam nrinam yagyoham bhagavatama dakshina jnana sandesha pranayama parang balam. Full concentration of the mind on me constitutes mental equilibrium, and complete control of the senses is self-control. Tolerance means patiently enduring distress, and steadfastness occurs when one controls the urges of the tongue and genitals. The greatest charity is to give up all envy toward others, and renunciation of sense gratification is real austerity. Real heroism is to conquer one's natural tendency to enjoy material life, and reality is seeing the Supreme Lord in everything in everything in the Supreme Lord. Truthfulness means to speak honestly in a pleasing manner, as declared by great sages. Cleanliness is attained by detachment from fruitive activities, and renunciation indicates the sannyas order of life. The true desirable wealth for human beings is religiousness, and I, the Supreme Lord, am the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Religious remuneration is devotion for the spiritual master with a desire to acquire real knowledge. And the greatest strength is the pranayama system of breath control. Interesting. Sārārtha-darśinī. Here the Lord defines those qualities that should be cultivated by one who desires to advance toward the goal of human life. Shama means to fix the mind on Lord Krishna, because without Krishna consciousness, peacefulness of mind is simply emptiness. Dhamma means to control the senses. One who wants to impart instructions to others without himself controlling his senses will certainly be mocked. Tolerance means to patiently endure the insults of others, as well as all kinds of distress. It is simply an artificial show if one performs some great austerity and yet is unwilling to tolerate the abuses of others. Real steadfastness is achieved when one carefully controls his tongue and genitals. Real charity is the renunciation of all kinds of violence toward others. If one contributes to charities while at the same time exploiting others by engaging them in hellish factory work, this is simply hypocrisy. Austerity means to forego all kinds of material comforts while observing the prescribed vows, such as Ekadashi. Real austerity is not torturing the body just to achieve name and fame. Real heroism is to conquer lust, anger, and greed. If one can conquer these three enemies, he is a greater hero than one who simply vanquishes his political enemies. Equal vision can be exhibited by one who is not envious and who sees how the supersoul is present along with the individual soul within all types of bodies. This vision is pleasing to the Supreme Lord, This vision is pleasing to the Supreme Lord, who then awards further advancements to the devotee. Reality is only truly understood when one sees the spiritual equality of all living entities, as confirmed by Sri Krishna in the Bhagavad-gīta 6:32. Atma pamyena sarvatra samang pashyati yorjuna sukham va yadiva dukham sa yogi paramo mata. He is a perfect yogi who, by comparison to his own self, sees the true equality of all beings in both their happiness and their distress, O Arjuna. One who is actually an advanced soul feels compassion upon experiencing the miseries of the conditioned souls. Truthfulness means to present the facts clearly and not distort the truth to avoid offending materialistic men. However, in the name of truthfulness, one should not become a fault finder. The truth should, that's a very important point. I'm saving that one. However, in the name of truthfulness, one should not become a fault finder. The truth should be spoken to elevate others to the spiritual platform, not to push forward one's limited agenda. Cleanliness is more than regular bathing. As long as the mind is absorbed in thinking of sense gratification, one must be considered contaminated, even if he has taken countless baths. Therefore, real cleanliness is purification of the mind. Real renunciation involves detachment from the false egoistic conceptions that the body is a self and everything in relation to the body is a possession. If, after giving up all one's material possessions, one remains attached to family members, that renunciation is only a show. Real wealth is to possess the knowledge of self-realization and not just so much land and money. Sacrifice is one of the names of the Lord, and so one should not think that the performance of sacrifices is meant for achieving temporary rewards. The best form of remuneration to the Guru is to render selfless service by distributing the knowledge one has. The best form of remuneration to the Guru is to render selfless service by distributing the knowledge one has received to others. Wow, that's also great. I'm saving this one. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. To fix one's intelligence in the service of the Supreme Lord while renouncing the natural propensity to accept and reject things for one's personal sense gratification is called shama. To restrain the senses from unrestrainedly enjoying their sense objects is called dhamma. To tolerate the distress that one is destined to suffer, thinking it to be the Lord's mercy, and refraining from feelings of jealousy because of another's happiness, is called titiksha. To abstain from all kinds of sense gratification, such as the relishing of very palatable food, is called steadfastness. To give up the mentality of unnecessarily punishing one for his faults is called dāna. To give up all desire for material sense enjoyment, despite having such facilities, is called tapasya. To subdue one's natural thirst for sense enjoyment is called shaurya. To see everything in relation to the Supreme Lord is called samadarshana. This is the best form of satya. Speaking simply yet boldly is called rita. To remain detached from material enjoyment while utilizing everything in the service of Krishna is called shocha. To refrain from enjoying the objects of the senses is called sannyas. To follow religious principles is the most desirable form of dana. To serve the Supreme Lord is actual yajna. To instruct others in the knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Lord is called dakshina. And to regulate the mind by breathing exercises is pranayama. Hare Krishna Shasharmaji. Bhagama Aishvaro Bhavo Labhomar Bhaktiruttama Vedatmani Bidha Badho Jugupsa Hrir Akarmasu Shir Gunai Nairapekshadya Sukham Dukha Sukatyaya Dukham Kama Sukapeksha Pandito Bandhamokshavit Murkho Dehadyaham Buddhi Pantha Manigama Smrita Utpataschita Vikshepa Swarga Sattva Gunodaya Narakastama Unaho Bandhur Gurur Aham Sakhe Griham Shariram Manushyam Gunadhyo Yadya Uchate Taridro Yasta Santushta Kripano Yojitendriya Guneshvasakta Dhir Isho Guna Sango Viparyaya Eta Uddhavate Prashna Sarve Sadhu Nirupita Kim Varnitena Bahuna Lakshanam Guna Doshayo Guna Dosha Drishir Dosho Gunastu Bhayavarjita Gunastu Bhayavarjita. Actual opulence, or bhaga, is my own nature, in which I exhibit the 6 unlimited opulences. The supreme gain of life, or labh, is devotional service unto me. Actual education, or vidya, is to remove the conception of duality from the mind of the conditioned soul. Real modesty, or hri, is to be disgusted with abominable activities. Real beauty, or shri, is to possess good qualities, such as detachment. Real happiness, or sukh, is to transcend material happiness and distress, whereas distress, or dukh, is the constant hankering for sex enjoyment. A learned man, or pandit, is one who knows the process of liberation from material bondage, and a fool, or murkh, is one who identifies with his material body and mind. The real path, or satpata, is that which ultimately leads to me, whereas the wrong path, or kupata, is sense gratification, which simply bewilders the mind. Heaven, or swarga, is the predominance of the mode of good, and naraka, or hell, is the predominance of the mode of ignorance. I am the true friend, or bandhu, because I act as the spiritual master of the entire world. The body of the human being is his griha, or residence. One who is endowed with all good qualities is adhya, or rich. And one who is dissatisfied with life is daridra, or poor. A kripana, or miser, is one who cannot control his senses, whereas one who is detached from sense gratification is truly a controller, or isha. One who is attached to sense gratification is just the opposite, or a slave. My dear Uddhav, I have thus elucidated all of the matters about which you inquired. There is no need for a more elaborate description of these good and bad qualities, because to constantly see good and bad is itself a bad quality. The best quality is to transcend material good and evil. Wow, this is amazing. Sārārtha-darśinī. Because compassion is recognized throughout the world as an exalted quality, the Lord has not described it here. Actual bhaga, or opulence, is possessed by the Supreme Controller. That's why we get Bhagavan, he who possesses bhaga. The controlling power of the living entities in this world, or even the demigods in heaven, cannot be considered real bhaga. Attainment of devotional service to the Supreme Lord is one's real asset, and not his children, home, and so on, which are all subject to destruction. Real knowledge is that which enables one to see everything in relation to the Supreme Lord, and not that which is acquired by an academic, such as knowledge of grammar and so on. The word hri means to feel disgust at the mere thought of sinful activities, and not mere shyness. One's good qualities are his real decoration, and not the crown that sits on his head. One who is satisfied in Krishna consciousness and thus does not seek material pleasure or suffer material unhappiness is considered to be actually situated in happiness. The most wretched person is one addicted to sex pleasure, and a wise man is one who knows the process of freedom from such material bondage. A fool is one who gives up his eternal friendship with Lord Krishna and instead identifies himself with his own temporary material body, mind, society, community, and family. The real path is the path of devotional service that leads one to the Supreme Lord, and not simply a footpath that has no stones or thorns. The path of sense gratification is the wrong path because it simply leads one to utter confusion. Predominance of the mode of goodness is real heaven, and not the abode of Indra. And predominance of the mode of ignorance is hell. The spiritual master is the best friend who saves us from all danger, and he is non-different from Krishna, the spiritual master of the entire universe. Our material body is our real home, and not a structure of bricks and cement. One who possesses all good qualities is actually rich, and not a rascal with a big bank balance. A real lord is one who has conquered material desires and ascended to the transcendental platform, and not an aristocrat who engages in all sorts of abominable activities. Thus, being asked by Uddhava, Shri Krishna has nicely described the difference between good qualities and faults. The Lord concludes his analysis by stating that there is no need for further elaboration of these good and bad qualities. Indeed, the purpose of life is to transcend material good and bad qualities and come to the liberated platform of pure Krishna consciousness. Gauḍīya Bhāṣya. The Lord is full of 6 opulences: wealth, strength, beauty, fame, knowledge, and renunciation. The supreme accomplishment is when one engages in the service of the Supreme Lord. To remain aloof from the material conception of life is the fruit of actual knowledge. To indulge in sinful activities unrestrictedly is the most wretched condition of life. To spontaneously abhor sinful life is the sign of true modesty. Good qualities are the actual wealth of the living entities. To give up the quest for sense gratification and achieve satisfaction due to love for the Lord is real happiness. The lust for material enjoyment produces limitless distress. Possessing knowledge of how to free oneself from the bondage of material existence is real learning. To identify oneself as the gross and subtle material coverings is utter foolishness. The true path of life is the one shown by the spiritual master who is coming in disciplic succession and thus authorized by the Supreme Lord. The wrong path is a life of sense enjoyment, which simply leads to the bewilderment of one's mind. A predominance of the mode of goodness is real heaven, and a predominance of the mode of ignorance is real hell. The Supreme Lord and the spiritual master, who is the eternal servant of the Lord, are one's real friends. The material body is one's actual place of residence. One who possesses good qualities is actually rich, and one who is dissatisfied with his position, which is the result of his previous karma, is actually poor. Sense enjoyers, those with uncontrolled minds and senses, and those who are overwhelmed by greed are truly misers. One whose intelligence is never swayed by the 3 modes of material nature is a real controller. One who acts under the influence of the three modes of material nature is controlled and dependent. To look for material qualities and faults is itself a fault. While cultivating transcendental qualities, one should give up the habit of finding fault in others. Thus ends the translation of the 13th chapter of the Uddhava-gīta, entitled The Perfection of Spiritual Knowledge, with the commentaries of Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura and chapter summary and purports by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Ṭhākura. Alright, so tomorrow we will continue on with chapter 14. Pure devotional service surpasses knowledge and detachment. Alright, so I'll do Jayadvani, and then for those who want to stay, I will sing Keshav Ashtakam. Jai Shishi Guru Granga Gandharvika Giridhari Shishi Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Narayan Gosvāmī Maharaj Śrīla Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Vaman Gosvāmī Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Śrīla Prabhupāda Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Gosvāmī Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Om Vishnupad Ashtatarashata Shishimar Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Śrīla Gaurkisharas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Śrīla Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Ṭhākura Ki Jai. Nitya Lila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Śrīla Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Nugagoriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Patadash Raghunath Sharda Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda Ki Jai. Namachay Śrīla Haridas Ṭhākura Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Kshetra Mandala Gaura Mandala Braja Mandala Mathura Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Sarva Abhishta Pradata Giriraj Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Radha Kunda Shama Kunda Ki Jai. Shri Yamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Shri Tulsi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Shri Purnamasi Yogamaya Ki Jai. Shri Gopeshwar Mahadev Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Shri Akarashi Titi Ki Jai. What is it? Mohini Akarashi Titi Ki Jai. Shri Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Shri Uddhava-gīta Ki Jai. Śrīla Viśvanātha Cakravartī Ṭhākura Sārārtha-darśinī Vritti Ki Jai. Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Gosvāmī Prabhupāda Gauḍīya Bhāṣya Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Samagata Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Hari Bo. Alright, so I'm going over to here. Oh wait, I have to share my screen. Okay, 1 second, let me just get my mridanga. Nava Priya Kamanjari Rachita Karna Pura Shriyam Vinidratara Malati Kalita Shekare Nojvalam Tarojvasita Yutika Gratita Valgovai Kakshakam Vraje Vijayinang Vaje Vipina Deshata Keshavam Pishangi manikastane pranata shringi pinge kshane Vredanga mukhi dhumale Shabali hangsi vangshi priye Iti sasura vikula Taralama vayanta muda Vraje vijayinam vaje Vipina deshata keshavam Kana pranayame turan Madhura narma goshti kala Vilasa nilayan milay Vivida vesha vidotina Sakina kila saraya Patisho hasayantam gira Vraje vijayinam vaje Vipina deshata keshavam Shamambu kanika vale Daravilida gandantaram Samoda giridhatuvir Likita charupantram puram Udancharali mandali Duty vidam vivakrala Vraje vijayinam vaje Vipina deshata keshavam Nibaddha navatarnaka Vali vilod kanot kantaya Natat kuraputan chalai Alogo bir bhuvam vindatin Kalena dhavala ghatam Lago nirvartayantam puro Vraje vijayinam vaje Vipina deshata keshavam Padati virvaram Virachanam asham Chatarala nainchiki Nichaya dhuli dhumra srajam Marulla hari chanchali Krita dukula chudanchalam Vraje vijayinam vaje Vipina deshata keshavam Muril vilasa murali kala Dvani birulla sanmanasa Kshanara kila ballavi Pulakayantamantar grihe Mohor vidatatang hridi Pramuditan shagoshteshvare Vraje vijayinam vaje Vipina deshata keshavam Upetya pati sundari Tati birabhirabhyarchitam Smetangurakaram pitar Natarapanga bhangi shatai Stanastavaka sancharan Nayana chanchari kanchalam Vraje vijayinam bhaje Vipina deshata keshavam Idam nikila pallavi Kula mahotsavollasanam Gramena kilaya puman Patati shushtupadashtakam Tam ujvala diyang sada Nija padaravinda dvaye Rating dadada chanchalang Sukayatar Vishaka Saka Bhaje Avraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Avraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Vraje Vijayinam Bhaje Vipina Deshata Keshava Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Jaya Keshava Dev Keshava Dev Keshava Dev Jaya Keshava Dev Jaya Hari Vasar Ekadashi Hari Vasar Jaya Ekadashi Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Jai Shri Gurudev ki Jai Jai Shri Sachinandan Gaur Hari ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Vinod Vihari Ju ki Jai Shri Gurudev ki Jai Shri Param Gurudev ki Jai Shri Prabhupāda ki Jai Shri Rupanu Gauḍīya Guru Varga ki Jai Shri Harinam Sankirtan ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai Shri Ekadashi Titi ki Jai Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol Hari Bol everybody, Dandavat Pranam. So I'll see you all tomorrow. And in just 3 days from now is Nrsimha Chaturdashi. So yeah, wow, exciting. All right, Hari Bol.